All right, it's time for another episode of the Audio Project with Deena Tierney, and I am very excited to have longtime friend, colleague, I don't know what we could call each other, but definitely friends, Kingston here with us today. And thanks for the wave, that's good. I would love it, Kingston, if you could do a quick introduction of yourself. Tell us about who yourself, your company, what your role is, and what this all means to you.
Yeah. Hi, everyone. Thanks for having me on the podcast. My name is Kingston Lee-Young. I'm the CEO of the Digital Mavens. We're a digital agency based in Sydney, Australia. So what do we do? Well, essentially, we help our clients with everything from digital strategy through to advice on digital transformation. We build websites, web applications, and also help set up ecosystems for e-commerce for our clients. But then from there, what we also do is help drive performance. So we provide services around digital marketing to help our clients find, engage, retain, and find more customers. I guess my role is CEO, Chief Maven, which kind of means I do a little bit of everything. But what I really love to do is provide that sort of strategic digital advice to clients, and look out for the next big thing in digital. So, what's going to happen in the industry, what's going to happen that will affect business, and then how do we get in front of that and change so we can adapt.
Love it. Great, Kingston. Thank you. And I know we've worked together, like I mentioned before, and obviously I'm impressed with your background. Do you mind telling our audience a little bit about you? Did you start off in marketing, or give us a little bit of your career journey, just for context?
Yeah. It's certainly something I fell into from a digital perspective. So I'm a lot older than I look. And straight out of university, I did your stock standard marketing, finance sort of majors. And I was going to work in a big corporate. So my first big job out of university was a company called Diageo, which is a global alcohol company. And really that was kind of my trajectory, was working for big corporates, learning the ropes from a sales and marketing perspective, research, management. And really I worked in and around big corporates, for the next sort of 10 years. I was very lucky to work not only just in Australia, but I got sent up into Asia, worked all around Asia Pacific, through to back down to New Zealand, and then back across to Australia. So from there, what age now? Now I'm really showing my age. It was probably about 2007. But I guess lots of things were happening in the digital world. So yeah, websites were starting to become a thing. Everyone needed to have a corporate website. New software was coming through. I think the iPhone or iPod were just starting to come through. And so things were changing, certainly from say photography. I was a keen photographer, had a great SLR camera. And then, things were coming through, and digital was now the new format and was changing. So always knew that this was a thing. And so I decided to jump from my very cushy corporate gig and start my own agency. And so at that particular point there, it wasn't specifically, again, around digital, but it was around this concept of, 360-degree or integration. So not just having your events, your PR, your comms, your branding, your shopper, all of that sort of stuff, and having them all separate. It's how do they all integrate and work together? And one of the things that started to tie a lot of that together was actually software. So that was kind of my sort of impetus in. It did also help that we got some very good IT clients at the very beginning. So we helped to launch Amazon Web Services here in Australia. We had VMware as a client, Intel, Adobe. So some pretty big sort of IT names that kind of helped cement and solidify this sort of requirement that, hey, look, the business world is changing. Certainly big multinationals, well-known CPG brands, were there, but these were the new breed of brands that were coming through. So I guess we cut our teeth on a lot of that stuff And then as we started to go through the agency, it was just this natural progression that we were doing more digital than we were doing the traditionals. And then, yeah, probably about 7, 8 years ago, we really started to make that shift. And then, it all sort of took off with COVID. So once COVID kind of hit, unfortunately, if you were a service provider in the physical sense of delivery, it was very difficult for you to continue doing. Whereas digital, we could work from home. We could have a distributed team working from, all different locations. And if you weren't prepared for that, then you were actually, at a disadvantage. So those that could pivot and move very quickly and service those were certainly on top. And, we were very fortunate to be in that spot.
Yeah, very cool. Yeah, thanks for that background. That's really, really helpful. And kind of circling back to it, and I know maybe you've touched on it a little bit, but I think there's more to it. When you think about what's happening in digital and in e-commerce, what excites you the most when you look ahead into the future, particularly about what's happening now in digital and e-commerce for you?
Well, I guess the exciting part is things are going to keep evolving and changing, but it's also something that's really scary because you never really feel like you're on top of things. But the important thing is that you're constantly learning, you're constantly evolving, you're constantly trying to keep up. There's going to be a whole bunch of new tools in the next 5 to 10 years that businesses are going to be using that will supersede a lot of the well-known software and brands that we currently work with. But then, for a lot of these tools, they're all about trying to solve real-world problems. So, it's great to sort of see that problems that were, a real business or physical problems in the past can now get solved with technology or a simple piece of software.
Yeah, for sure. I agree. And I think one of the things you said earlier about this 360 and bringing all the channels together and really aligning things together, I think is a really good point. I was wondering, right when you were saying that, I was wondering how you work with some of your clients with their digital marketing strategy. What are the ways that you advise them to bring all these pieces together?
Yeah. Good question. Look, the first thing we always do, which probably is a bit weird for a digital agency, but we do really want to try and understand the business model. From there, if we don't know what the business is trying to achieve, what their product or their service is, then we really can't help bring that to life in the digital sense. So, that part still rings true. So once we understand that, then it is about trying to walk them through their digital strategy and their transformation approach. So do they have realistic expectations around what they want out of digital? Is it really just a tick the box exercise, or is it something they're going to be investing in continually as they go forward? And so once we sort of walk them through that process, walk them through, a strategic process, the next big part, which I love to do, is come up with, what I call a digital ecosystem map. So a bit like a train track map you put up on the board. What are all the different digital assets or software or things that you need to run your business, and then how do they connect? What role do they play? And once you put it up, you can actually start to see, this one's sitting over here, it's not connected to that one, but they really should be. That one is actually something, and so you start to see where your gaps are. You start to see how things work. Is it overly complicated? Is it not complicated enough? So you can really ask some quite interesting questions around what they want to do, or how do they start to move forward from there. And then we use that essentially as a roadmap to go forward to then deliver on the right assets or digital software or processes.
Yeah, that sounds good. Yeah, thanks for that. I know I was glad to hear you say business model at the very beginning. I can't tell you how many times, even with the work that we do, is I always feel like if you don't understand how an organization makes money and how they operate, what drives them, it's really hard. You can get sidetracked doing a thing that doesn't reach that objective, right? And if you're it's a very well-meaning thing, to drive some efficiency in some area, But if it doesn't really support the business model and help the growth and those areas, then that may not be the best use of, effort and time, and helps you kind of architect things. And that's really cool to say that, especially as a marketer and a digital agency, because I think it's so easy to get caught up in the creative, right? But at the same time, you got to drive the results. So,
Yeah. And like, it's an interesting point there that I think the maturing of the concept of digital now is like everything is digital. So it's not
Sure.
just a particular function or a division or a department or a service requirement. It is just a concept that overlays how you do stuff and execute things. And so if digital isn't aligned to the rest of the business and your business, objectives and processes, then yeah, it's really a disconnect.
Yeah, for sure. One thing I'm kind of curious, when you do that ecosystem map that you mentioned, how do you look at maybe physical space, retail space, for example, with some of your customers? And are there any kind of new things kind of popping up when it comes to how retail is looked at in physical space and how that aligns to digital strategy? Or does that kind of like, ooh, that's a separate thing, or what observations have you had there, some experiences, especially lately after pandemic?
Yeah. So yeah, well, the great thing about the ecosystem map is that you can layer so many different elements over the top. So it could just be your technical ecosystem. It could be then your overlaid over the top is then your customer ecosystem and what your customer experience is. Then you can put your assets and channels over the top. So at any one point, you can sort of see these multiple layers and step back and just start to then see that, my retail POS and the loyalty information that I'm getting or the sales information I'm getting off a particular customer in a retail store, how is that then being captured in my CRM, or if I've got an e-com platform as well? Are we actually sharing a lot of that information? So mapping that there and then going, sometimes your POS system actually doesn't talk to your internal customer management system, and then all of a sudden you've got an integration issue or a one source of truth issue there from a data perspective. But then thinking about retail, it's certainly been really challenging with COVID, with a lot of businesses, certainly here in Australia, but also around the world, really being forced to shut down, and trying to work out, how they're going to survive, how they're going to sell the products that they have. And so it really has been this shift of that traditional thinking of having a bricks and mortar store. You buy products in, you warehouse it, you store it in a location, you have customers that come to you to buy, and you sell it to them from the stock that you've got. Moving that then to the online world, where you could have stock in any location, you just really need a digital footprint that sells, and you can get to people wherever they don't need to get in the car and come drive to your store and visit you. They can do the shopping and buy the stuff from the comfort of their own home.
Yeah.
So post-COVID, I guess a lot of people were struggling because all of a sudden you were set up for a bricks and mortar process, then you're moving into an e-com online purchasing process. And then now that the world is kind of coming back to a little bit more of a balance. I'm seeing a lot of conversation around what is the right balance? Do we still need bricks and mortar? What role do they play? How do we run them efficiently? Because if you still don't have the foot traffic, how do you keep all the stock there? But then it's chicken and egg, because people will turn up and go, I'm looking for this particular product with this size or color. And if you don't have the whole range and can't sell it to them at that point, then they're going to walk away and go, I should have just bought it online rather than coming into the store. So there's an interesting balance there, which I think now is that conversation of the hybrid mix of an online offline experience, buy online, pick up in store, go into store and try things on, and then have it delivered to you elsewhere. So I guess we're looking at these ways now of how the two need to really work together.
Yeah, I'm glad you shared that. I think it'll be interesting to see. I actually had somebody else on the podcast recently talking specifically about retail. So slightly different conversation, but it was interesting to think about how companies now are rethinking what they do in the store and somehow having that complement the digital. It's almost like the digital is now the main player and the retail is more the augment to the digital activities that are happening. And then somehow blending the two. I know there's a phrase, I think we used it on that last podcast, called phygital, which is like freaks me out. It's like physical digital, but that concept of really like the leader was always the what you saw in person. Now the leader's the digital, and then what does retail do to start to bring a creative element or bring an experience that you can't do online, and then those two sort of things complement. I don't think anybody has it figured out, but we've seen some, companies, I think, trying to figure out and try different things. And I'm sure Australia is creative. There's a lot of creative people in Australia, so I'm sure they'll be doing some cool things soon too. As it relates to the work that you've done on lead generation and e-commerce, are there any misconceptions that people should be aware of when they start planning, their digital strategy?
Yeah, probably lots.
It's magic. That's the first. It's just started, and it just starts working, right?
Yeah. Look, okay. Let's do the first one, lead gen. Look, I think lead gen is starting to become a lot harder than it used to be. I think from a B2B perspective, who we did a lot of this stuff for those big IT companies that I mentioned previously, and you have a website, you'd have some sort of hook, like a white paper or some sort of report. You'd put a information gateway there. Please give us your details. And then they'd sign up, and then they get this free sort of white paper. And all of a sudden you're starting to build your lead gen database. And then you start rolling through, your nurture campaigns from there. Or you're running an event and you're scanning customers that come up to your booth. A lot of that stuff, look, I still think it is kind of fundamental, but what you need to do now is actually become a lot more savvy. People are less, I guess, they're more reticent to give you the information they previously gave you. I was at a PubSec education event, just the other month. And just looking at all the phone numbers that came through from all the people that visited the booth I was at, they were all the school numbers. So no mobiles were in there at all, no direct lines. It was just the main number. And so I think you'll find a lot of that stuff now is people are just genericizing their information, or they just don't want to give you that personal information. And that's a really hard part, certainly for a sales team that goes, all right, well, marketing, where's my marketing qualified leads? I want to go through, ring this. All I've got is the main line, or maybe I've got the secretary's line. I want, a personal number so I can call them. That's becoming really difficult to do. It's not impossible, but it's one of those things where you need to earn it. You need to earn the trust. You need to earn the value to get someone's personal number. So you can't just offer something up willy-nilly and think that you're going to get great results.
Mm-hmm. That makes sense. Yeah, so being more thoughtful and that requires a lot of work to be thoughtful in how you approach it.
Yeah. I think if, it's always that thing of, if you flipped it on its head, if somebody came to you, rang you, or, you're at an event and they go, right, can you give me your personal email and your personal mobile number? Also tell me about your job description and what your responsibilities are, and are you going to be buying in the next couple of months, and how much budget you're responsible for. It's pretty kind of creepy stuff. But if you are in the market for it and you sort of are open to that, then you are willing to give across certain amounts of that information at certain stages of your sort of purchasing cycle, because you fundamentally know at some point you're going to have to give that over to someone, right? But are you going to give it over all in the beginning? Probably not. So it's got to be a bit more of a thought through journey, and also understanding that it's probably more like dating, that you know, you're going to divulge everything in the first date. You need a couple of dates after that to get more information.
That makes sense. What about e-commerce?
Yeah, look, e-commerce is an interesting one. Misconception is it's probably a bit of a weird one to say, but you know, the misconception is that it's really difficult to set up an e-com store and make sales. In fact, with things like, you know, Shopify now, with WooCommerce, you know, some really easy sort of software that anyone can actually create their own web store, and they can load up products and they could be selling from it. The thing from there, though, is to actually grow it, to make it successful, is then probably where the hard part comes in. And I think, you know, businesses do need to have a good look at what they're really expecting from their e-com teams, because I see a lot where it's really one or two, or, you know, less than 5 e-com teams that are expected to grow and run essentially what would be this, you know, the same as a bricks and mortar store. And so, you know, you do need that resourcing, you do need the support, you do need processes and changing processes. So it's not difficult to start. The difficulty is really about establishing that and growing it, and the change within the business that needs to then recognize that this is a legitimate sales channel.
Yeah, I'm really glad you brought that up, because one of the questions I get, and I'm going to flip it to you now, but one of the questions I get is, what, you know, okay, we're going to implement this big Salesforce solution. And then it's like, okay, well, after it goes live, what's it going to take for me to maintain this, to support this, to continue to enhance it? Slightly different, but I think the question I have for you as it relates to e-commerce is, you know, what type of team, what type of skills, what type of, you know, how do you staff up something like that? What are the things that people do in order to keep that really much like going and growing?
Yeah. So, you know, the teams I've seen work really well are actually hybrid teams. So you do need people with specific digital skills. So, you know, running an e-com store, you know, if you've got a commerce cloud store that you're implementing, you'll need someone who's your e-commerce manager, same as a store manager. Now, that person needs to be able to run the tools, work on the platform, but, you know, the other side, they need commercial acumen. They need to know how to make, you know, products, put it up there and sell the products. So there's pricing, there's distribution, there's logistics, there's margin understanding. So all of that stuff needs to either reside within that sort of e-commerce manager, or you know, a team that sort of runs it like it's a business. Then you've got your specialists, and so you've got your inbound team, you know, who will obviously be more FA with social media and paid media and that type of stuff. And then you've got your, you know, technical support on the actual store. And then you can start to build into other different areas. And so it can actually, as you start to grow, you don't need a lot of that stuff, but then it becomes like if you were to expand in a bricks and mortar sense, that, you know, you start moving into supply chain, distribution management, customer engagement management, loyalty programs, and that sort of stuff. So again, it kind of follows a little bit in terms of what a traditional model is. However, the skill sets and services are then, you know, squarely sort of digital based.
It's really cool. That's a good analogy. Can you share or give our audience a recent client success story, either lead generation, e-com, or something that, you know, kind of brings these things to life that you've just shared?
Yeah. So I guess one of our clients is a well-known premium skincare brand. And we were very fortunate to get in on the ground level in Australia and help them on their e-commerce journey. And so we sort of have this philosophy from an e-commerce perspective is around the stages of maturity. So crawl, walk, run, fly, you know, not very exciting or you know, brain intensive.
It works so well.
It does. And I guess for a lot of our clients, the excitement of saying, yeah, I want to get to running and flying as quickly as possible, kind of derails a lot of the process, because you need to get a lot of those fundamentals up first. You need to get, runs on the board. You need to be able to prove that you can repeat and do that across the business, and the business needs to evolve. So I guess with this particular client, they were really great in, helping to, accepting that the digital strategy and the e-commerce strategy needed to grow and evolve slowly over time. Looking from a crawl perspective, it was, a very heavy focus on internal processes. So how do we get products out of the warehouse into the online, and then how do we actually secure products specifically for the online and not have it being taken by the other bricks and mortar or customer channels? How do we label the products? How do we also make sure that the master data sort of comes in and is all consistent? So some of that is also, talking to legal, talking to the marketing teams, and just getting your internal ducks in a row. So we kind of helped them through this process, and they had a fairly it's a great brand, and then they were selling fairly well online. So really for the next one that they came in, we came in, it was more around that walk type approach. Is how do we get repeatable performance? We're delivering. How do we get faster over this stuff, and how do we expand? So the jump for us, in terms of those businesses who want to move from walk to run, is all about automation. So getting the right platforms in place, getting the right additional plugins or additional software that goes in the top, that allows you to grow at scale and still perform at a really acceptable high level of quality. And so, we called it our co-pilot process, and we were sort of embedded in with the team. As the team grew, we helped a lot from strategy through to providing support services on digital marketing, or analytics around conversion, or customer insights and areas of where we can try and drive sales. But it was really great being able to work in that partnership approach, with them. And I guess I'm pretty happy to say that we got the results, going through, and they already had a fairly healthy sort of 6-figure monthly revenue of sales, and then just by tweaking the process, by bringing in more automation, by understanding it's not just about what we're selling, it's about the customers, and mining the data of our loyal customers, or those who had fallen off and not come to buy from us, and how do we get them back again? We're able to grow the revenue by 100%, 150%. And then obviously we sort of coming off the back of COVID as well, with a lot of the changes that we've made. The highest that we actually had was another doubling of the sales revenue. So it's the highest they've ever had from monthly sales performance. And a lot of that then came down to having the right team, having the right support, understanding that it is a growth process, understanding that you're constantly fixing things as well, and amending and adapting to what your customers want, what the business needs as well, and sort of maturing from there, and not trying to grow and get to run as quickly as you can, but doing it in a sustainable way.
Like that. Yeah. I think early in my career, someone said, and I feel like your story encapsulates it, is there are no silver bullets in technology, right? Everything, it's very iterative, and it's an investment of time and tweaking and adjusting and changing and adapting. And you can't just put it there and be like, you're done, right? And so I think that the results are speaking for themselves in this case, where, the right team, the right people making the changes and automating. Very cool. I know that your company over the years has tended to be technology agnostic, which is great. But I am very excited that you are, related to Salesforce now. We're part of the same family in a way, I guess, at this point. So you're adding Salesforce to your portfolio of skills, and I'm just curious from your perspective. I know it's you're getting situated And Salesforce is there's a lot, and it's a big thing, but it's a really powerful technology. So I'm curious, what are you most excited about for your clients as it relates to Salesforce?
Yeah, so well, the three sort of clouds that we'll focus the most on will be the Commerce Cloud, Marketing Cloud, obviously, but interestingly, we'd worked with Exact Target and Pardot, way back in the day before it got purchased. So great to sort of see that and work on those platforms again. And then probably Experience Cloud. So the three ones which align very much with Digital Mavens and what we offer in terms of that, digital marketing, commerce, and then also building online experiences. But yeah, what else? I mean, they've been, Salesforce is certainly one of those ones has grown over time. I love the fact that they've purchased Tableau, and then they purchased Slack, and then they're investing in Einstein and IoT. So I think we might dabble in on the side around the sort of analytics and AI, and see how we can kind of bring some of that smarts to our clients.
Yeah, very cool, exciting. I'm excited, I'll just say that. That's I mean, I think it's great. So the other question I have that I'm going to switch to, we usually end some of our podcasts with some hot takes just to get to know you a little bit more. But before we do that, I know that you and I both share a passion for mentoring youth and technology. What advice do you have for young people who might be exploring careers in tech?
Oh, yeah, good one. Look, get moving, get started as soon as you can. Might be a bit controversial, but you can get started at an early young age. It just really comes down to when you want to start doing stuff. So there's certainly lots of amazing stories of 12-year-olds who are out there that are selling wristbands or little things, trinkets, with their own online store, and making good money out of that, or they're just learning the process. So certainly, yes, you need to go to school, you need to get a really good education, but it isn't something that you need to wait until you've graduated to get involved in. And look, it's really easy for certainly digital natives these days, young people, as they come through, because they just understand it, they've just grown up with it. So get started as early as you can. Have a go at everything. So I think about the either really annoying thing or the really good thing about young people is, when they see a new piece of tech, they'll just get in there and click things, click, touch, move. And I guess user experience design has kind of, mimicked a lot of what they think should happen. And so it should happen. So if it is quite intuitive, then it shouldn't be that difficult to make something happen the way that you think it should happen. And so then, get in there and just try different platforms. Every day, there's always a new software platform or a new offer or a new feature or functionality that's come out. So, the hardest part is trying to stay on top of it. But, if the first barrier is, not wanting to have a go, that's probably the part that you need to address if you want to be in tech.
True. I mean, imagine what you or I would be doing if we had all this stuff when we were kids. Like, I just looking at what kids do now, and I'm like, wow. I mean, that's amazing. And the youth are they're very impressive. We've done many mentoring type things, and I'm always like blown away. I'm like, I was not doing that when I was your age, but that's great that you are. And I remember, now that you mentioned the clicking around, I feel like when technology was newish, I won't say how old I am, but people were afraid to click stuff because they thought they were going to break stuff. Like, you were afraid to do it because you thought you were going to break it. But now there's like, you're not going to break it. Just click, go do it, and
yes. I remember that from my parents. It's like, don't touch it, you'll break it.
Exactly.
Yes.
All right, cool. Well, we will transition to hot takes. So this is just a chance to get to know you a little bit more, get inside your head even further on a few fun topics. So first up, World Cup.
Yes.
Are you yes.
Well, yes, I'm still, obviously I jumped on the Australian bandwagon, an amazing team that, we really were very close to not making the World Cup. We had to to go into an intercontinental shootout with Peru, and luckily we got through that and we made it through to the 16th round, which was great. You know, if we had to be beaten by someone, yeah, certainly Argentina, you know, certainly take that, but yeah, we gave it a shot. So I don't know, it's going to be pretty exciting to see what happens. There's been a lot of really good upsets.
Definitely following it.
I don't know. I think,
so sorry, I should have said on the hot takes. I'm just going to say one word and you can go for it. So
oh, okay.
like,
yeah. Stop me.
Sorry about that. I didn't explain what was going to happen here. Okay, next one. AI.
AI, yes, it is the future. And it will be crazy to sort of see a lot of the way that people are going to incorporate AI into just everyday stuff. Again, it will be a lot easier to just do the most basic, fundamental and mundane things. And it's going to be incorporated into just everything. So yeah, it's either embrace it or, you know, we go back in the cave.
Yeah, fair enough. Email marketing.
Ooh, yes, changed a lot. You know, certainly now with, you know, in Australia, there's been a lot of focus on privacy. Well, certainly around the world, there's been a lot of focus now and change on data privacy, customer information, securing that stuff. So I think the days of, you know, an email marketer just having carte blanche and just going out and doing whatever they want and being super creepy and personalized are over. It really now needs to be about respecting the privacy. So you may collect the data, but you don't necessarily need to use it all. Or, you know, you do need to think about how you use it in an appropriate way. And so it's probably going to be something more like mass customized email marketing. So certainly we don't want just a one size fits all and not respecting some of the information that you give, but you certainly can't be creepy and you know, single out one particular person around stuff. So there's going to be a balance and continued shift, I think, in email marketing processes.
Cool. Facebook, Instagram, LinkedIn, social, basically.
Oh yeah, social. TikTok is probably
TikTok.
Yeah, look, I mean, Meta is still the behemoth. I don't think there's anything right now that's going to take over Facebook or Instagram, but it is losing relevance. And so we're kind of seeing that, yeah, Facebook is losing its shine. Yeah, you know, you can still pay for access to audiences. You can still collect a lot of amazing information about people. A lot of people still use Facebook, but it's just not what it used to be. Instagram, I really like for certain brands and certain campaigns. Pinterest is kind of a dark horse there that people sort of forget about. LinkedIn, I think they're doing a good job sort of retaining their identity after being purchased by Microsoft, so it hadn't been fully brought in and then taken into that whole Microsoft world. But again, yeah, it's still for professional social. I hope they keep it to that, but I'm
debatable at times, but I'm like, whoa.
Yes, yeah.
LinkedIn.
Then,
sorry, go ahead.
No, go.
I was just going to say, I feel like LinkedIn changed a bunch when it first started. It was like all these salespeople had no outlet, and it just got all right there. So that was interesting.
Yes.
Cool.
But I mean, I think TikTok is certainly the one. If you take away the fact that it's developed and run in China, it still is a behemoth, and we're seeing it becoming more into the mainstream now. And yeah, it's actually going to become a hugely influential platform.
Cool. All right, last one, UI UX.
Cool. Two different things. User experience is not the same as user interface design. However, they do go, sort of hand in hand. Certainly, yeah, UX should be first.
UX,
So
UI.
think about what the user experience is, big fundamentals, why are they here in the first place, what's the concepts of what they want to do on your site. Then start to design up the specific elements and graphical elements that then bring that to life and people can click on. But it's like the old days of when people go, oh, SEO, SEM, two different things, UX, UI, two different things.
Very cool. All right. Well, that's all I have for the podcast today. Kingston, it was great to talk to you. I'm really sorry. I guess when I was in Australia, maybe a month or so ago, we didn't get to connect. I think you were in Perth the week that I was in Sydney. So hopefully next time.
Yes.
And yeah, but I am happy that we got to catch up today, and I'm sure more of that in the future. So
yeah, let's do more of it.
Sounds good. All right, Kingston, thank you very much.
Yeah, well, thanks for having me.
Okay.
See you again soon.